Hello everyone, welcome back to 20-Sided Adventures. Today I was debating making a video on some DM tips and how to get started, and was really just struggling on what exactly to talk about when Mark Humes had a great post on Twitter asking folks what are their barriers of entry to getting into D&D, and there you go, like manna from heaven. Check him out. He DMs for the High Rollers, a live D&D podcast. Definitely go check his Twitter out and give him some love in the tabletop space. And with that, let's get into some of these obstacles that folks have with getting into TTRPG DMing. Okay, so the first two that jumped out, and this was echoed a lot throughout the conversation, was I've never played D&D at all before, and playing it with friends might mean having to run games too. So it's kind of nerve-wracking. It's a lot of not knowing where to really start and afraid that you'll let people down by not being proficient enough. And then also, I think that people should have at least a little bit of experience as a player before becoming a DM, don't you? So when I started in middle school, 7th grade, I bought a player's handbook at a hobby store and the DM guide, and we showed up at the science lab, and we just started building characters and then realized someone needs to run the game. So someone did. None of us had played before. We didn't have YouTube videos to watch of other people playing. We didn't have communities to really interact with. You could maybe, your hobby store might have a club or some people that get together, or maybe they do open games. Mine didn't. So we entirely started by just doing it. And even though you have all these things in the space, you can still just do it. All of us are improvising, and frankly, even the professionals probably don't know what we're doing at any given moment. We're just trying to do the best we can as we roll along.
Sometimes I'll start a sentence, and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way. Like an improv conversation. An improvisation.
So that leads into a great one that also came up. Improv. I've never been great at thinking on my feet whilst under pressure, and the thought of being sent to places I didn't expect and thus could not have prepared for by my PCs terrifies me. LOL. So this is an aspect of being a GM. You have to be able to think on your feet. You are going to have to improv. Your players are going to run all over the place, but there are ways to kind of corral them, keep them within reason. There's a lot of things that can come up that are going to be variables, but most of them can kind of be prepared for, and there is a vast amount of tools at our disposal now to help along the way. The simplest is if you're really caught off guard, just be honest with your players. Whoa, I did not expect you guys to do that. Give me a few minutes to figure out what that looks like. Take a break, get a drink, have some snacks, let the players do some role play amongst themselves while you get a moment to collect yourself. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. On the tool side of things, we have AI name generators. We have ChatGPT that you can drop a scenario into, especially if you've been using it as a collaborative tool for some of your adventure building and brainstorming. It's going to know the backstory of what you've been talking about, so it could even help fill in those gaps. AI map generators. If you're using a virtual tabletop, you can pull in things from your world anvil or other places to fill in those gaps, and we just have so much more information and things available to us than graph paper that you penciled out during math instead of doing your work for the map that the players are on. Yeah, there's just a lot more tools now and a lot more resources to help solve this problem. And again, the easiest thing is just ask your players for a moment while you come up with what you're going to do next.
Give them a moment, for pity's sake!
So the next one that came up is kind of an interesting and something that's I never had to go through as a GM in the early days, but it's the angry GM cracked it recently by saying something along the lines of a DM being expected to provide such a level of entertainment that cannot be achieved by newbies. Also to be a servant to the players and placate them. The standards are unreasonable due to popular podcasts. We certainly had no critical roles, high rollers, any other type of watching other people play D&D or other tabletop games. Heck, we were trying to not be seen playing it because it probably meant having a rough time in gym class. So that's something new, and new players to the game might have unreasonable expectations because of that, but I think it also depends on where you're finding your players. If it's your group of friends, If they know you're not a voice actor, they should probably not be expecting voice acting. It just seems a reasonable expectation to know what your friends are capable of and what to expect from that level of a game. If you're just picking up people on Roll20 looking for groups, or you're doing something like that, you might get a wider range of people and some other expectations. And this is where session 0 can really come in. As the game master, you can set forward the idea of your style, what you're hoping to accomplish, the story you want to tell, and get some feedback from the players, because in the end it is a collaborative gaming experience. Even the game master is playing along, and just have that right expectation set. Now, also in the realm of professional GMing, as that is a thing, you can pay to be in D&D games and have a GM that's running that. Those levels of expectations are likely going to be higher because you are paying to be entertained and to have someone to run a game for you. But that's not who we're talking about in this video. We're talking about you and a group of friends who went and saw the D&D movie, and you think maybe you want to pick up Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or any of the other number of tabletop games out there and give it a shot. And for that, if you're playing with your friends, I don't think this level of expectation is a real problem.
Wait a minute. This isn't my world. Disappointed!
Okay, so the next one, maintaining the flow and rules of combat and crafting balanced encounters. So this is where I'm going to lean on Pathfinder a little bit more than kind of the generic tabletop role-playing space. Pathfinder 2e is a very well-balanced game, kind of built from the ground up, so their math just works out much more smoothly than, let's say, D&D that's been cobbled together since the 80s, right? And just keeps getting added to and additions and changed, and maybe sometimes the math doesn't always work. So number one for the rules, you have everything at your fingertips with Archives of Nethys, because Paizo makes all of their rules completely available. You don't have to buy the books to be able to have access to all of the rules. And then second are tables 10.1 and 10.2, which you'll see here. And these are really cool. This is how you balance your encounters in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So first you're going to decide how difficult are you going to make the encounter, anywhere from trivial to extreme. It gives you an EXP budget, which is designed for 4 characters, and then tells you how much EXP to add to the encounter's budget for each additional character, or even DM player character. So if you have NPCs that you're controlling that are helping the party, you can very easily plug this in and get a formula. And then on table 10.2, it tells you the level of the enemies, ranging from plus or minus 4 of your party or your player character's level, and kind of tells you what that'll mean as far as difficulty level. So a plus 4 to party level is an extreme threat, possibly a solo boss. So this is something that you're not going to have a lot of minions with, and it's just going to be the lone boss. And then that's worth 160 experience points. So it doesn't matter what level your players are, what level the party is, what level the monsters are, you use these formulas. As long as your monsters, your bad guys, your villains are within 4 levels of your party, either direction, you are given a numerical value to build your encounter around for combat. And that just makes it so much easier to build encounters. So I have been primarily GMing, trying to get rid of the Dungeon Master stuff. So I've been primarily GMing Pathfinder 1 for the last 6 or 7 years, and before that it was Advanced. I did some in 4th. THACO was a thing for a long time. And building an encounter was just daunting for a new GM, like 100%. I know how my parties interact in Pathfinder 1, and I can build fights around them. I am always my most nervous in a start of a new campaign with the first encounter I throw the party against, because I'm not 100% sure how their characters interact. Once I start to see the dice rolls and the damage done, I feel much more confident building encounters, but it's very much personal feeling, and I build the encounter. Since I've been running a Pathfinder 2e game, I've just been diligently following the model. It takes half the time, because with Foundry you have a bestiary that you can just drag and drop from level right into the character sheet. It's a whole 100% ready to go, and it's just so much easier. It cuts down on prep time. I don't have to worry about it being balanced. It is a fantastic system.
Pretty, isn't it? Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
Okay, so the next one is what scared me to start being a DM was keeping track of everything. you can go from a simple spiral notebook of keeping notes to something as robust as World Anvil, which is what I'm showing off here. I've been a World Anvil member for some time. It's fantastic for world building, but also for running campaigns. So here's their campaign interface. As you can see here, it's got previous campaigns I've run and then my current one. So we can load it up here. This will keep track of a lot of your kind of overarching things. So you can do plots. So if you want to take notes for yourself on what plots are going on, you can have the party. Your players can also interface with this page and store information that's there. So like if there's group items, if there's any active quests or things they want to keep track of, they can come into this and interact with it. You can load up NPCs. I don't use this aspect of it, but it is here and available. You can also have session recaps. So every time you schedule a session, you can write a report about it. So you can always go back and reference what happened on previous adventures. So these are just some of the tools that World Anvil has specifically geared towards your game, as well as their entire breadth of everything you can do to maintain it. There's also a pretty cool thing here, which is whiteboards. I was going to show you one of my whiteboards, but I realized it has too much pertinent information, and some of my players watch these, so that won't work. But this is just a very simple tool to throw your ideas down. So you can draw squares, you can toss something in it. So, oops, here we go. An attack at the tavern. And then what does that lead to? And you can just brainstorm and outline out visually, like scribbling on a notepad, your adventure. This is actually the better square tool. So yeah, little sticky notes that you can type in. But you can jump in here and build your adventure as an outline. I really encourage new game masters, don't get very into the nitty gritty. Your players are going to do things you can't anticipate for, but if you have overarching ideas and a basic outline of where your story is going to go, you can drop it in here and kind of connect the dots. I never usually go from A to Z in one full go. The story evolves as much as the players interacting with it as I interact with it as we go. I kind of have a general destination, an idea in mind, a story I want to tell, but this is a collaborative storytelling experience, so your players are going to change that story from what you initially had in mind. But having this outline with key individuals, important people, important events, important items, anything that you think is integral to telling the story you set out to tell as a game master, you can drop into these whiteboards, build an outline, and adjust and kind of move it around. Last but not least is how this all integrates with a virtual tabletop like Foundry. So this is for my 2E game that I'm running. This is doing a hex crawl, so I have all of the hexes for the hex map that they're interacting with in a document that they can view, and I've recorded all the information. So hex 1, Falkenwald, a town within Wolfsfelden's greater territory. They can read about it and know what level gear they can get there. They found the werewolf camp. So as you can see here, I have something that says reveal. So this is things that only the game master can see, and I can write it as a note simply to myself, or I can make it something that once they uncover it, I can click the reveal button and everyone can see what's happening there. Same thing here with the Goblin Raiders, and so on and so forth. So I can build this information, and it's always available and saved in my virtual tabletop. Players can also have their own notes in the journal entries here. So this is what the players put together, and they were just jotting down important information they've gained from NPCs. And then this is an import from World Anvil. So I built the city of Wolfsfelden and the duchy of Wolfsfelden into World Anvil. And instead of making them click back and forth, there's a great integration tool, and it pulls the entire article down into the game so it's quickly at their fingertips while they're playing, giving them all the information from population levels, what items are available, demographics, the defenses of the city, on and on and on, which is things I built in my World Anvil. Now, not every game is going to require this level of in-depth world building. It should really be based on what you're comfortable with as a game master. If it's your first game, I might even encourage playing something in a canon world you're familiar with. If you get really passionate and you have your own world you want to build, then take off, pick an area. I world build through my gameplay, so my campaigns tend to be about areas or subjects or things that are happening that I'm not sure what that looks like in my world. So I plop some adventurers down in it, and we see what we find and how the world progresses. My most current game, that's going to be my last first edition game, is happening on a continent that has been ruled by dragon clans. And now that the dragons are gone, I have wondered for the last two campaigns what the heck is happening on this continent because my players put the dragons to sleep and they can't be awoken. So now I'm making them sit in the mess they've made and play through what it looks like in a continent that no longer has dragons in my Scale Scourge game. But as far as not being able to keep track of everything going on in your game, new game masters, you have so many more tools available to you. I started with a spiral notebook and some graph paper, and if I left those in a locker or forgot them at home when we were playing at lunch or on breaks, we didn't have any games that day because we didn't have information. And I had lost notepads in the past for whole games and kind of had to scramble and start over. With virtual tabletops and digital tools like World Anvil, you have everything at your fingertips to record all the information for your games and not lose track of it and have it readily available for your players. So many good tools for that. This should really not be a hindrance for anyone who wants to get into game mastering.
Do not turn the VCR off yet. This is a special section of the tape for Dragon Masters only. When everyone who is not presently interested in becoming a Dragon Master has left the room, we may begin.
So that little gem is from a board game called Dragon Strike. It was put out by TSR, and it was kind of like Dungeons and Dragons Light. It came with 2 game boards, flip them over. You could build your own kind of dungeons on them. Had some predetermined adventures and some character sheet-like cards. And then that fantastic VHS video to introduce you to how to be a dungeon master. A dragon master for Dragon Strike. And then also it kind of took you through the initial adventure to give you kind of an idea of what the game was about. And it always has this disembodied head talking to his friends and then playing through the game. But it does have some interesting little bits of wisdom.
The key is that all the players must work together as a team in order to win. And you, as the Dragon Master, must make the world unfold before their very eyes. Your role is all important. You set the stage for the players, presenting the quest they must follow. Only you know where the treasure is buried. Only you know where the clues are hidden. And only you know where the dangers lie. Now don't forget, a great Dragon Master isn't afraid to ham it up. Sure, the monsters just want to beat the heroes up, but it's a lot more fun when they do it with style.
Rise up, fire elemental. Use your rage to engulf my enemies.
The game rules and adventure cards will give you tips about what the monster might say. The rest of the time, just make it up. Follow the game's guidelines about how smart the monster is and what motivates him, and have fun with it.
I'm walled in here!
The instructions will tell you that the dwarf is telling the truth. And when the chips are down, he'll help the party. A Dragon Master can win the game if the players make bad moves, move too slowly, or don't act together as a team. To make the game more challenging for the heroes, you get to set some of the traps at the start of each adventure. But that doesn't mean you can cheat or ignore the rules. For example, if a monster is about to die, resist the temptation to save it. In fact, there's really only one rule to being a great Dragon Master. The real object of the game is for everybody to have fun. And if the game isn't fair, nobody will. Now you have all the secret knowledge you need.
Well, while not perhaps a perfect analog for a game master, it does have a lot of good tips. Most importantly, everyone should be having fun at the table. For what it was, though, picking that up at a Target off the shelf was a fantastic joy in the early 90s as a kid in grade school. Maybe middle school when that came out. I don't quite remember. But I hope this has helped a lot of you. There are a lot of daunting challenges that a game master does face, but they don't have to be as daunting as they appear. There's plenty of tools and resources available to help you do these kind of things. And if you have a regular gaming table and you have a game master at the table and you want to give it a shot, I guarantee you they are going to be a resource for you. They are more than happy to help you and would probably love the opportunity to get to play. A lot of game masters have the moniker of Forever GM, and it exists because there aren't as many people that are willing to do it. So if you're thinking about it, you think you have a story you want to tell, or you just want to experience running a game or a module, you should pick it up and you should do it. Nothing bad can really happen. At worst, you fumble your way through it and everyone has a good laugh at the table. So I look forward to hearing about anyone who gives game mastering a shot. If you have any questions or want some tips, please feel free to leave a comment. And I look forward to hearing about your 20-side adventures.